All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to chapel. So happy to have you here. Each of these people on stage has a 5-minute announcement, so buckle up. It's going to be a long one today. No, it'll go quick. So the only announcement that I have is just B groups. B groups start up this week. I just emailed all of your leaders, all of your names, and so they should be contacting you very soon just to make sure you know when your first meeting is and where it's at. But just be on the lookout for that and be anticipating meeting this week. That's all for me.
Hey everyone, my name's Abigail. Oh my gosh. I just wanted to inform you guys that our rock climbing gym is opening tonight. So that's pretty epic. I just want to let you know it's on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays from 6 to 9. And specifically today, we're calling it a build day because we have taken down all the rocks, all the holds, and so you can come in and build your own routes. So that's pretty cool. But after tonight, we'll continue with regular climbing, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, 6 to 9. We'd love to see you guys there.
Good morning, TFC. So, some of you may know me, and if you do not, my name is Melly, and I'm the president this year of SMF, and all these lovely people standing next to me are part of my SMF council this year. So SMF meets on Wednesday nights at 6:30 in the Big Warner Missions Room. And a little bit about what SMF is. It stands for Student Mission Fellowship. And the goal of SMF is to connect TFC with God's mission going on around the world, which includes right here on our very own campus. So on Wednesday nights when we meet, we have a time of worship and a time of prayer and a time of testimony, which means we have different speakers come so that we can learn a little bit about what God is doing around the world and even right here in the United States. So this lineup is our speakers for the next 3 weeks. Tomorrow evening, we have Professor Shell speaking, and he is the department chair of the Global Missions Department. Next week, the president of SMF, I think you might have met her, is speaking next week, so that's me. And then the following week, we have the president of the Christian Missionary Alliance, Dr. Stumbo, coming to speak, so definitely come out for all of those. And one cool benefit of coming to SMF, but not the reason you should come to SMF, is that you will also receive a chapel credit. And if you have any questions about SMF, you can come speak to me or one of the other people. And Matt has something to say about...
Hey, so just real quick, if you guys want to follow us on Instagram, I'm kind of running the account this year. It's going to be at TFC__SMF. So I'll be posting about that a little bit after chapel, just talking about what we're going to be talking about this Wednesday. And just keep your eyes posted and see if you can star in one of our stories.
In the Big Warner Missions Room, 104, maybe? Yeah, so we hope to see you all there. Come to SMF. Woo!
Good morning, everybody. I know most of y'all don't know me. My name is Joshua Villers. I'm the youth and family pastor at Toccoa First United Methodist Church, and I just wanted to take a few minutes just to let y'all know that we have multiple opportunities for y'all to get SAO credits, Barnabas groups, internships, both paid and unpaid. If you want to work with our sound team, with our music team, in the office, with youth, children, in the nursery, we have opportunities for y'all. We have more information in our table in the foyer on y'all's way out. We also have snacks, so feel free to stop by and grab those on your way out. But other than that, it's nice to meet all of y'all at one time. And I hope the chapel goes well for y'all today. All right.
Good morning, guys. If y'all would stand to your feet, we're going to worship this morning. One thing that I was thinking about this morning is that our God is just so dang easy to worship. He's a God who turns graves into gardens and mourning into dancing. He's a God who gives us joy that the world can't give us. So y'all sing this morning. You should know this song. I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. And man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. And every day And that's the truth of the gospel, isn't it? He set us free no matter what we did. He's our Redeemer. This next song we're going to sing has been one of my favorite for a minute now. It's called I Speak Jesus. There is power in his name, more power than we know. And when you speak it, it's not just saying another name. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. I just want to speak the name of Jesus till every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over fear and all anxiety. Oh, so every soul captive by depression, I speak Jesus. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. 'Cause his name is power. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Yes, it is. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. Shout Jesus from the mountains. Jesus in the streets. Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family. I speak the holy name, Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains. Jesus in the streets. Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family. I speak the holy name, Jesus. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Yes, it is good. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. You know, when you tell someone that you're going to pray for them, I truly believe that praying is the most powerful thing that we can do. So let's pray over our school years this year that He would take away all fear and anxiety because He has power over that kind of stuff. Oh, sing this with me. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. Jesus, we thank you for just being able to gather together and worship you today. I think sometimes we just become so numb to the gospel because as Christians and as being in a private college, and we hear it all the time, God, but there is so much power in that you sent your son to die for us because we are so undeserving, and that is a love so great we will never understand. God, I pray for this chapel service that you will really speak to us, that you will convict us. We love you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Anybody else need to hear those words this morning that we sang? It is so good to worship together with you. This morning, it is my great privilege to introduce to you Shira Charpentier and Tasha Golding. Together, Shira and Tasha are the co-founders of a nonprofit called Beyond Rules Recovery, which focuses on eating disorders and body shame. They hail from the great state of Minnesota. Not Minnesota, Minnesota. Okay? Yeah, anybody from Minnesota? We got one. Quick accent lesson. Okay, we don't say boat, float, and goat. Okay, we say boat, float, and goat. Okay, there you go. All right, so they are now based in Martin, Georgia, and I'm just so excited to have them here to share some of their experience and their story on this issue. Already, this has come up in our discussions on shame, so please welcome them with me to the stage.
Hey, everybody. So we'll just be really authentic with you guys because that's who we are now that we're in recovery. This is like the largest crowd we've spoken to, so we're super excited and we're a little nervous. But we're here just a couple weeks ago to speak to the RAs, and I think it was really well received. Today is going to be a different kind of talk. It's going to be more personal stories. Jordan asked us to talk a little bit about shame, so we're talking about that. Not an easy topic to talk about in front of people, but like I said, recovery has really changed the people that we are, and we're really proud of our journeys and where we've come from. So here we are today.
Yeah, so we are from Beyond Rules Recovery, as Jordan said. We are 100% peer-run nonprofit. So that means all of us who are working with Beyond Rules Recovery are in recovery from our own eating disorders, helping those who are also trying to find recovery. Some of the programs that we offer, we have one-to-one peer mentoring services. We have weekly support groups right now for adults on Sunday evenings. And then we also do education workshops similar to the ones that we did here with the RAs. But we've talked to a bunch of different diverse communities such as coaches, students, athletes, teachers, dance teams. We've hit a lot of people. So we do a lot of education and workshops, which is one of our favorite things to do, which is why we're here today too. So I am Tasha. We're both from Minnesota, so here we are. A little bit about how my eating disorder got started was, one of the biggest things was I was an athlete. I grew up as a figure skater. I was a gymnast, so two sports that were, very aesthetic and, had the structure behind it where eating disorders were very susceptible. I also had the family that I grew up in was very body focused. They were all athletes. They were all set for us, my sister and I, to do these big time sports, wanted us to be the best. And so that means our bodies were very micromanaged. Our food was always micromanaged. I was never really taught how to eat because my mom was very obsessed about keeping us a certain size, teaching us these strict food rules. There was constant dieting, constant diet talk, no foods allowed specific in our household. And so that became breeding ground for my eating disorder to start. And then once I got to college, because of the background I had as a child growing up, I had no idea how to eat. And there were a lot of things that I was ashamed about, a lot of the things that really developed my eating disorder further. So I'll let Shira introduce herself.
So I'm Shira. Unfortunately, I grew up in a home that was physically abusive, and there was a lot of rules and expectations. There was a lot of sort of fear-based, things going on in my home, and that sort of led me down the road of perfectionism, wanting to please people, making sure that I didn't cause too much of ruckus going on and aggravating. So that unfortunately, really stayed with me through all of my school years and into college and beyond. There was also a lot of talk about food. There was low-fat food, fat-free foods. There was talk about bodies and, kind of judging people in society. And so there was always sort of this need to stay a certain size, eat a certain way, and kind of portray that we didn't really need a lot of food to sustain ourselves. So unfortunately, both of these are breeding grounds for Tasha's and my story, just an example of, what is out there. And I think for those of you who are not in our speaking for our A's, 50% of eating disorders is from a genetic base. So if you got the genetics and you have sort of an environment ground that makes you susceptible, those kinds of things can pop up. Unfortunately, that happened for both of us. So Jordan reached out to us. We had talked with him last year, and he said we were talking about shame in chapel, and was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about shame in relationship to eating disorders and your recovery. So we are here talking about that today. When we were kind of talking about this, kind of what we were going to talk about, we're kind of talking about shame doesn't necessarily lead to an eating disorder, not always, right? I mean, I think it's different for everybody. But when we thought about our journey of the eating disorder and how long we had it, shame really played a role in us staying in the eating disorder and not getting out of it. And so I think that's a really important distinction to make, because I think there's so much secrecy and denial and not wanting to show that you're struggling, and that can create more and more shame and harder to get out of challenges, not just eating disorders, but any challenge. So.
Yeah, so we thought we would talk about some things that we all felt shame, or both of us felt shame about in our own eating disorders, and then go on to talking about how we overcame that as well. So again, like I said, I don't even think I really knew what shame was when I was growing up or even in college. I mean, I knew about shame, but I didn't really realize that it was something that I was experiencing. And as I said, I grew up as an athlete and in a body-focused household, and because of that, I felt a lot of shame around how my body looked all the time. I was very hypersensitive to, the way people looked at me, the comments people made about my body. I was very ashamed of what I thought other people were perceiving my body as. So that really made me feel like I needed to thrive more in my eating disorder, to really change the way that my body should look and match those expectations that were set for me. Another thing is my performance as an athlete. I was never the greatest athlete in my gym, in my club, or really anywhere. But I love the sport. So, I mean, I loved competing, I loved performing, but I was never great compared to a lot of my other teammates. And so I had a lot of shame when it came to my performance, when it came to competing. Really it was the big comparison trap for me where I just felt like I could never measure up. So there was a lot of shame around my performance. I had not the greatest coaches in the whole world who made a lot of comments about my body, about the foods that I ate. My parents as well were also very critical of what foods were good and bad, and would put a lot of shame if I even desired feeling hungry for those foods or even desired certain foods. So every time I thought that I wanted this food, I really felt ashamed about it because I didn't think that that was allowed, essentially. And so being hungry was also something that really got me going, and eating around people was also very hard for me as well, especially around people who intimidated me, like my coaches or my parents or anybody who I felt like was looking at me or watching me eat or really judging about how I'm eating or what my body looks like. I felt so much shame and struggle around that. So here's Shira.
For me, I think part of the shame was comparison to my older sister, who was a lot smaller than me, and our bodies got compared a lot. And she was praised for being small and looking cute, and I was sort of a stockier build, and I just felt like there was something wrong with that. Also, just being a kid, I kind of had to grow up pretty fast, trying not to upset our parents, which led to the abuse. And so there was just shame about really desiring to do what kids do, and that's just maybe talking about silly topics or making jokes about things like that. Those things were just never allowed in my home. And then lastly, there was a lot of shame about being a burden to our parents. My dad had a really challenging physical job, and I remember my mom would, at the end of the day say, he's coming home, let's make sure we're on our best behaviors, and we don't want to upset him. And, I think that really started to affect my sister and I with just how we talked in the house and how we emotionally evolved and just not really wanting to be too much of a problem.
So that's just a little bit about our story with our eating disorders and what kind of shame that we felt while living with our eating disorders. But fortunately, we both have worked really hard. We've both gotten to a place in our lives where we've found full recovery, and we are, thrilled to be able to be here and share this with you today. A lot of odds were against us as we were trying to find our own recovery. Within our families, within the treatment facilities, we had a lot of, both of us had experienced practitioners, doctors, nurses, dietitians, all telling us that, we had had an eating disorder for so long that, it was going to be physically impossible for us to find a full recovery. The chances of us finding a full recovery were pretty slim to none, so we better figure out how to, live with an eating disorder and, still be able to survive. And with that being said, we both were like, no, that's not how our lives are going to end. Like, this is not how we were born to live. This is not why we were born to live, and we know that we have so much more on the other side of our eating disorder. So we have, put together a list of things that we have found that has really helped us overcome that idea of shame, to overcome the idea that really we weren't meant to get better. And so here's a list.
Yeah, I think first of all, setting more realistic expectations for ourselves. I think we kind of base our own needs off of other people's, what other people want for us, what other people think of us, how we are meant to sort of live and thrive. And unfortunately, the more you do that for other people, the less you sort of are in tune with your own body, your own senses, your own abilities, and yourself really gets lost. So just sort of really trying to find yourself wherever that is and leading the best life for yourself. Second, I think Tasha and I spent a lot of time with other people in our program, really helping to reframe belief systems, and that is really hard to do, right? So if everybody kind of thinks about a core belief of theirs, everyone may have a different thing, but they hold that to be true, even if it's not true. And those core beliefs kind of get skewed when you've had an eating disorder or an addiction or some other kind of challenge. And to overcome that, you have to reframe, relearn, really kind of become a different way of thinking and being. And so we spend a lot of time talking about core beliefs, and I think that's one of the biggest things for longevity of recovery is how your brain works. Second is letting go of what's portrayed in the media and what's portrayed out in society. I think we all have access to social media and smartphones and TikTok and Facebook and all of those things. And the more we compare ourselves to other people, the more we lose a sense of ourselves. So sort of letting go of what is portrayed and just being honest with yourself. Yeah.
The last two things that we talked about together was authenticity. So when we lived in our eating disorders, I don't think we really understood what authenticity was and was within us and how we acted out of that. But authenticity is so important when acting into recovery. So what I mean by that is really starting to accept your truest self, embracing your best qualities, embracing who you are, acting out of your belief system, acting out of your values instead of feeling like you should be acting in this way or you should look this way or, trying to be pretending you're something you're not. Authenticity is what really breeds recovery in any kind of sense. It's what gets you out of that headspace of shame. It's what gets you into a place of finding, people to be around, positive people to be around, embracing the people who you are, being the more authentic you can be, the easier it's going to be to make it out of that ground of shame and hardship and adversity. The last one is finding a desire within yourself. This is something that we talk a lot about in our community and our support groups is, the biggest thing is, yes, you need a community, you need support, but you also have to understand that, the desire must come within you. You can't rely on something else or other people or other things 100% to get you to recovery. It's ultimately you that has to make the actions to get you there. Whether you're struggling with an eating disorder or any other kind of hardship, it's within yourself to find that desire, to really act in those positive behaviors to help you get to the other side. There's always room for support, and there's always, you cannot thrive in recovery without any other kind of support, but you also need to be able to find that motivation and that determination within inside of you and stick with the commitment even when the motivation comes and goes. So that's also something we talk about a lot is motivation is something that comes. You might wake up one day and you're like, yeah, this is great. Kind of like you feel at the beginning of the school year where you're like, I'm going to get all this done first. I'm going to be on top of things. And then like you start getting to the end of school and you're like, I'm so tired. So like, it's how you really start to perceive motivation, and what really helps when motivation ebbs and flows is that commitment level. You might not wake up feeling your greatest, but you know that on the other side of things, it's going to be much better. Or, on the other side of things, this is what you're working for, and this is what you dream about. And so really leaning into that commitment level and knowing that, you have the desire, you have the determination, and you have the tools around you to really accomplish anything that you believe you can do.
So I'm not sure what you guys talked about last week about shame, but one of the hardest things is shame breeds secrecy, right? It breeds sort of lying, manipulating, not being true to yourself, not being true to others. And sort of the more secrecy you get into, the harder it is to get out. And we talk a lot about this, and I think I reflect about this with my own life, how inauthentic and how, much sort of coercion and things that I was doing that really weren't in line with my belief system and my values. And so one of the biggest things to kind of get out of that that spiral of shame and secrecy is really just being honest, really asking for help in ways that maybe you didn't think you could, being open about your own struggles, asking somebody that you see is maybe a little bit further than you, how they got there. There's no reason not to kind of use other people to lift you up, right? And I think I remember having a mentor for during my recovery that really led me to a better place. I really saw him as somebody that I really wanted to emulate. And if I didn't have that one person, I was really lost. And it's not to say that I didn't do it on my own, but there was things that I realized that I wanted. I didn't really know that I could have. So sometimes kind of seeing the outside yourself and being honest to ask for help and to say, I'm really struggling in these ways. How do you think I can get out of them? And I think if people don't have the answers, continuing to look for ways to get better. Both Tosh and I were sort of in the treatment realm in and out for many years, and ultimately it wasn't where we found recovery. And so always evaluating, is this working for me? Is this the situation that's going to best help me? And if it's not, there's no reason to stay and stick around, right? It might work for some people, but not everybody. So just remembering that everybody has such a different journey and such a different road that because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. It just means you need to find a different way. So we've learned that the path to overcome an eating disorder, any challenge really, is community, communication, honesty, and the last thing I think people hate to admit is dealing with emotions. I really did not know how to deal with emotions, being in a household that was sort of, all emotions were suppressed. We couldn't be happy, we couldn't be sad, we just really had to be sort of the middle ground all the time. I've been in recovery for 9 years now, and my life has dramatically changed. Every year when I celebrate my recovery birthday, I say I'm just 1 year older, and I'm celebrating my 9th year of living this year because I really wasn't alive. And emotion is so important to being alive in today's world, and I think it's so easy to sort of numb ourselves and to deny ourselves and not really be in touch with what's really going on inside. And so learning to accept all emotion, good or bad, frustration. I think there's like 105 emotions on the emotion wheel, which is something we go over a lot. And I think people are like, okay, I'm happy, sad, mad, glad, excited. And it's like, that there's like 100 other ones. And it's like you look at the wheel and you're like, wow, I never even knew those words could be described for emotion. And so I think that's, to me, is really exciting because the more you're able to express and be specific, then other people can understand, right? And you can start to understand your own patterns and ways of thinking, and then grow from there. So
Shira hit it right on the head. Community, communication, honesty, and dealing with emotions are really the core things that we say are at the root of finding recovery. And it's definitely the 4 things that have helped us get to the place that we are in today, or we're at today. So with that being said, we are talking a lot about our own eating disorders and our own recovery stories. However, we know that everybody goes through their own challenges. Not everybody has an eating disorder. Not everybody has an addiction. Everybody goes through some grief, some loss, any kind of hardship, any kind of adversity, injury, illness, whatever it may be. Everybody has their own hardships. And because we are just specifically talking about eating disorders doesn't mean that this can't apply to you. All of these things that we've talked about today about overcoming shame, finding that community, being honest and authentic, finding that desire within yourself to want to change and want to get better and want to see the better side of things. These are all things that all of you can use within your daily life, within your daily struggles that can help you overcome this idea of shame. So I'm going to hand it over to Shira, so she's going to talk about what we're going to be doing on campus here.
Yeah, so we're super excited. We're going to be leading a monthly small group for you guys here on campus. You don't have to go anywhere. You can even come in your pajamas. We're going to be totally happy with that. And we are going to be talking about some of the topics today. You do not have to have an eating disorder. You don't have to be diagnosed with one. You don't even have to identify with having an eating disorder. If you would like to talk about self-esteem, self-worth, body acceptance, balanced eating, balanced lifestyle, overcoming perfectionism, changing your core beliefs, exercising in moderation, being the best person you can be. All of these and more, we are going to be meeting on the third Thursday of every month. That would be next Thursday is our first one, September 15th at 10 a.m. And Jordan is going to pick the place for us, so we're not even sure where that is yet. And we would love for you to join us. We're going to be here the rest of the year and can just get to know each other and really kind of become the best people that we can be, which is what I love to help people transform into. I mentored Tasha. That's why Tasha is amazing today. She had a great mentor, and I think everybody should find a mentor themselves. This is one of the best things I did for myself, and won't speak for Tasha, but yeah, definitely come join us, and you guys can check us out. You don't have to commit to coming the entire time, but I think the more consistency is always the better, as we find with our own groups on Sundays. So yeah, definitely ask us for more information in the back when we're done here.
Yes, Shira was a great mentor. I wouldn't be here without her. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming out today and listening to us and, being open to what we have to say to all of you. If you or someone is struggling with any kind of negative body image, disordered eating, excessive exercise, chronic dieting, negative self-esteem, anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Yes, we'll be here once a month for our groups, but we are always 100% reachable at any time. So, we have our mentoring services, we have our support groups. We are more than happy to help. If you are part of an organization where you feel like a workshop could be helpful, if you know of any places that you feel like a workshop or education would be helpful, we would be extremely happy to present as we can get up on our soapbox and talk for hours if we could. But again, thank you so much for coming out here today, and please reach out to us anytime.
There'll be business cards and little one-page or one little bit flyers if you want to take them. That's an easy way to get in touch with us.